to another Ableton tutorial. Lovely to have you here. Big shout out Patreon gang, big shout out YouTube gang. Right, what are we looking at today? Well, I wanted to look at some more ideas to do with granulator and creating these kind of glitchy textures, but more in a way that have patterns and patterns that we can evolve, patterns that we can do stuff with, but that are kind of really performable. I talk a lot on this channel about performability of racks, and I showed in my last video how I go about using that performability to actually make full tracks. Link in the description below if you want to check out how I think and talk about that. I also talk a lot on this channel about prediction and how when we listen to music, our brains are trying to predict what's happening next. If we're listening to sort of club-based music, we're predicting when the drop is going to happen, and maybe that expectation is met, or maybe it's a fake-out drop, and, you know, our expectations are, you know, exceeded or unmet, or, you know, when we're listening to pop music, we're predicting where the melody's going, when the chorus is coming. So sequences and patterns, and even patterns that evolve and change and have little bits of randomness in them, our brains are still engaging, trying to predict what's happening and trying to look for what's going to happen next. So I wanted to build this rack, show you some ideas about that, and see what can happen. So I'm just going to press stop on this drum beat for now. So this is what's happening on the rack, and we get vastly different sounds depending on sort of what sounds we put into it. So for instance, if I put more of a sort of piano chordy type thing in, try a different patch. And again, we can do all sorts of cool stuff here in terms of freezing it and so today we're going to be looking at how to build this rack and all the sorts of cool stuff you can do with it. You can of course do sort of more weird percussion-y stuff. Let's hear how that sounds with some drums. So you can hear how it's a pattern that's repeating, and we can, you know, we can do cool stuff, and we can bring randomness into that. But our brains are predicting it. We're engaging with the music on that prediction level. So yeah, let's press stop on that. Let's turn that off. Patreon members will be able to download this entire set, including this rack that I built, and here's some samples, just as starting points that you can already chuck in here. Perhaps it's interesting to chuck in a vocal from a track that you're working on, or a guitar line, or some drums from the track that you're working on, and try those ideas as adding texture and layers. Or you can use it sort of more as a lead line, as I was doing in the intro. So let's start from the beginning. We're building a granulator rack. So surprise, surprise, I'm going to start by dragging in a granulator, and we're going to sequence this using the SQ sequencer, which is in MIDI effects. You might need to download an additional Ableton pack to grab this, but I'm just going to bring in the SQ sequencer. Come on, you can come in here. I've used this a couple of times in recent videos, so I'm not going to go so deep into exactly how it works, but this is what we're going to use to get those sequences, get those repeating patterns. And let's just drag in one of these sounds. What have we got here? This. Yeah, some crunchy drums that will give us something to start with. So we can see that the sequencer, and let's bring in a MIDI monitor in here so we can, you know, see exactly what's happening. So that's just triggering note C3, and you can hear it's just triggering that note in the beginning. If I was to randomize the pitch here, it's playing that same note, but it's sort of pitching it up and down, which is cool. It's already creating a little sequence that is repeating. Let's reset that. But we can now move the position around using this position key. And we can also adjust. You can see that when I click on each of these different things here in Granulator, each of these different controls, it opens up this little arrow which is saying how I can use different inputs to control those things. So the grain size, I can use the key, which is the note that's coming out of here, to control the grain size, or I can use velocity to control the grain size. I can use keys to control the position or velocity, or even pitch bend or slide, or any of these MPE stuff in here. So if I now hit random on here, turn this key up here, so we can hear that as well as affecting the pitch, it's also moving through which exact part of the sample is being triggered. Let's reset that. I'm going to use that idea for today's rack, but I'm not going to actually map that straight to here. I'm going to bring in another device in between. I'm going to use an expression control to do that. So I'm going to select this to be key track, I'm going to select it for unipolar and 100%. We're going to turn random up to 100. We're going to turn that onto linear. Going to bring the position all the way down. And now I'm going to map that to the position here. So we can hear that it's sort of jumped, or we can see that it's basically jumped to halfway through. But again, so if I now press random on this, and we're getting already some interesting, cool results happening there. I'm going to come in here and randomize the length of these. And I'm going to come in and just adjust a couple of controls already on the granulator. We're going to turn down the release. I'm going to get that quite short. So that's quite cool already. Well, another cool thing we can do with the expression control here is the rise and fall. So if I slow down the rate of this, we're going to see exactly what happens a bit more. So if I adjust the rise, we can see that it's not jumping straight to the new point each time the note is above. We can see it's sort of slowly moving through. And if I do the same thing on the fall, you can see we're getting some cool scanning effects here. So that's going to be something that's really interesting to play with. So already, let's turn this back to 8th notes maybe. I'm at 140 BPM, by the way, today, if you're wanting to follow on exactly. Let's make that 16th notes. Let's go back to 16th notes. I'm going to turn this into a rack. I'm going to select everything, press Command G. And I'm already going to map some stuff to this. So on macro 1, I'm going to map how much this key is affecting the position. So that's going to be this amount here. If this comes back down to 0, we can see that it's now not moving through the sample. So I'm going to map that to macro 1, and we're going to call that key to position. I'm going to constrain the range because at the moment that's going to be going from minus 100, exactly. We just want that to go from 0 to 100. Is that... Oh, I need to turn this back down. There we go. I was fooling myself. I'm like, why is it still going through the sample? There we go. So now we can hear that this is just controlling the pitch. Okay, so map to macro 2. I'm going to map these rise and fall to macro 2 and macro 3. Macro 2 and macro 3. And again, I'm going to constrain the range. I don't want those going all the way up to sort of 1,000 milliseconds. Let's bring that down to... let's say around about 400 maximum. Yeah, something like that. Let's name those. Let's open up all the macros because I'm going to want all the macros for this. Okay, let's map some more stuff. Let's map the grain size to macro 4. And again, I'm going to constrain the range. I don't ever want to get it down like super... Maybe that's about the lowest that I want. So let's put that 12. And how high up do we want to go? Probably maximum about... let's make it 500. Let's give ourselves quite a bit. Okay, let's map the velocity to the grain size. So I've clicked on the grain size. This little tab is open, and now I'm going to map this so that the changing of velocity can also sort of vary the grain size. So let's map that to macro 5. Velocity to grain. The shape is going to be fun. Let's map the shape to macro 6. Let's map the scan to macro 7. And let's map... I'm going to map this actually. I'm going to make some... These controls here is just going to be stuff to do with the sequencers. So I'm going to map the division to macro 8. Okay, more stuff from here. Let's map the transpose to macro 9. Now, again, I've clicked on the transpose. This little arrow is open, and I've got this key to transposition here. So if I bring this all the way down to 0, oh, well, I can't do it right now. I'm going to map that already. I'm going to map that to macro 10. And so if I bring that down to 0, we can hear that the difference in note is not actually pitching the note up and down either. So now we can sort of key to position, take different bits in the whole string without it pitching up and down, which can be really useful if we're using melodic samples in here. Let's turn that back down for now so we can hear what's going on. What else do we want to map? Spread. Let's map spread. Where's spread gone? That's over here. Map to macro 11. Variation. Let's map that to macro 12. Map to macro 12, and let's change that so the variation. All right, I'm going to turn off the mapping here because I need to change some stuff over here. Variation. So at the moment, the variation is only modifying the pitch, the position. Sorry. Let's also make it modify the grain size so that the more this variation actually really does something. Cool. Okay, now I'm going to create a couple of other things in here. Put this back up, and so it's actually... Yeah, let's keep the key to position none so we can sort out some stuff. Right, I want to create a situation where I have a chance of a note coming through so that I can control, let's say I only want 50% of the notes coming through. I'm going to create a situation where I can do that. So I'm going to bring in I can use any MIDI device to do this because I'm not actually going to change anything on the MIDI device. I can actually delete that MIDI. Oh, let's leave that MIDI monitor in for now because I'm going to now turn that into a group. I'm going to open up the chain settings here and I'm going to create a new chain and I'm going to turn that new chain off. And I'm going to put that one up the top and I'm going to put that one down the bottom. So now we can see that the MIDI notes are now only going through this chain, which is off, so we're not hearing anything. And now I can move this across. So I'm going to map that to the macro one, which is going to be inside this MIDI effects rack. I'm going to call that notes chance. I'm going to map that to macro 13, and I'm going to bring in an expression control, MIDI effects expression control. Where have you gone? Expression control. And we're going to put that straight after the sequencer. So this is now going to generate a new value every time the sequencer gives it a note. So let's change that to random, and I want that to be going bipolar and 50%. I want to change that to 100% random, linear, and I'm going to map that to this note chance. So, and I need to constrain the range here to go from 0 to 1. So now we can hear, just very occasionally something's coming through. So I actually need to change this to 49% so that when the note chance is all the way down here on 0, we can hear no notes are getting through. And if I turn it all the way up here, we're getting 100% of the notes, roughly 70% of the notes, 25% of the notes. So that's cool. So now I have this way of varying, varying the chance that a note is going to make it through. Now, another cool thing that sounds really cool with granular effects, I can close that now. Yeah, another thing that's going to sound really cool with granular effects is a latch. So I'll turn this note charts down, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So we're going to bring in a MIDI effect, and we're going to use a note length for this. Now, what a latch does is it just simply holds down the previous note until a new note is triggered. So we can hear that it's holding the previous note until a new note is triggered. So let's create a chance for that, a chance that a note is going to be latched. So I'm going to turn that into a rack. I'm going to map this to macro 1. I'm going to call that latch chance. So latch is off, latch is on. I'm going to map that to macro 14. And now I want to use this second expression control that I've got in that's after the note chance. And I'm going to use, so this is now only generating a new value each time it gets a note. And I'm going to use that to control this chance here. So again, I'm going to go bipolar. I want 50%. I want random up at 100. I want logarithmic. Actually, I want that at 49%, don't I? And now I'm going to map that to here. So the latch chance. So now I can control the chance that a note is going to get latched, that is going to hold on. Okay, now some other stuff from the sequencer. I think it's going to be interesting to be able to control the sequence length. So I'm going to unlink all of these, and I'm just going to right click and map all of these to macro 15. And let's call that sequence length. Yeah. So now each of these sequences only be triggered one. Now we're going 2. Yeah. And now I'm going to actually connect all of these randoms to macro 16. So I'm going to map to macro 16, map to macro 16, map to macro 16, map to macro 16. So now each time I move this past 50, we're getting a new random sequence. And that's randomizing velocity, that's randomizing length, it's randomizing octave, and it's randomizing pitch. So that's cool. That's giving us a whole bunch of cool stuff. So now I have a whole bunch of cool stuff I can do to control the sound. So let's key to position. Move these going up and down a bit. Let's adjust the scan. Some variation, some spread. Oh, that's nice. Key to pitch. Yeah. These are already some cool effects. But now I can just press random here. Oh, we're not hearing anything. Oh, that's nice. So this is very, very quiet because the division is very, very low. So that's going to be only triggering a new note once per bar. The latch chance is, it's up there. The note chance, let's turn the note chance all the way up. Let's turn the latch chance back up. Yeah, cool. And it's also super low on the transpose. Okay, let's add a little bit of post-processing here. Let's add, first of all, I'm going to add a raw audio effects. Raw. I'm going to drive that a bit. Oh, no, here, drive that a bit. Not too much, not too much. And I'm going to add a little bit of high end. And let's add an OTT at the end as well. Actually, I'm going to use my not so OTT preset, which is basically the OTT preset with this dialed back to 48 and a little bit of change here. This is nice. This is fun. Cool. Random again. Some cool effects happening. So you can hear, just by pressing random on these carefully selected things, we get a bunch of cool stuff happening. Let's see what happens if we drop something super different in here. Let's try this. Wow. Randomize the sequence. Transpose up. This is super high division. Let's bring it down. Cool. How does that sound with some drums? So you can hear how it's we're getting some cool little artifacts here and there, but it's following a sequence. We're able to predict it. So this is essentially the rack. What I had built on the end, I'll show you one other cool little thing that I did, was to use this effects rack that I built. It's called the, what did I call it? The live stretch effects. Oh, it's going to be in here in effects. Live glitch stretch. Yep. This is a free download. Link to download it in the description below. Let's drag you in here. And that's doing already some crazy effects. So what I did was create this sort of what I call a 4-bar wash over here. Let's turn the drums off. And I'm going to show you how I did that. Oh, you're going crazy. Let's just mute that for a second whilst I do this. So I'm going to create a new MIDI clip here. I'm going to make it 4 bars long. And I'm going to not use any actual MIDI notes. I'm going to just automate something on the glitch rack. Where's it gone? Glitch stretch here, and I want to automate the effects out and the dry out. So the effects out is going to get louder over the 4 bars. So let's do it like that. Let's give it a little bit of a curve like that. And what I actually want to do is also make it reset at the end of the bar. Now, I don't want this to loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and turn linked off. I'm going to turn loop off. I'm going to make sure it plays for the whole thing. So that's going to end at 5.1. Yeah, so now that's going to play once through. I'm going to do the opposite thing with the dry out volume in this rack. So we're just going to make that go like that. We also need to make it actually go back up at the end, and that's going to do that. And we're going to make that have a little curve like that. And again, we're going to turn linked off. We're going to turn this off. Going to make sure that goes for 5 bars. So let's turn it back on. And now I press play on this. We can see these automations happening. It's getting crazy. And they don't actually reset on the rack, but they have reset. I can hear that those automations have reset. So that's like a cool little washout effect that I can do. So we could go like, you know. These little live effect stuff I find super helpful for playing. So I then made some other ones with like a washout with a reverb and stuff, and we can also now make some presets here. So let's solo this, and let's open up the presets, the snapshots here. It's like a new snapshot. Let's make this sort of note chance on, latch off. Oh, other way around. Scan down, variation down. So now we're getting sort of a really repeating sequence. I'm going to save that to variation 1. But now what I can do is just get crazy on some of this. Start messing with it. Oh, that's going crazy. Let's turn the latch chance all the way up. Hit the washout. And now hit this preset. And we're back to where we were at the start. So it makes it really performative. You can do some really cool stuff with this. Let's bring this back in. Lovely. Okay, that's the rack. I found this super fun to build, super fun to play with. Patreon members will be able to download this entire set with this rack. I made a bunch of presets for you to try out, and you'll also get this. Whoa. You also get this sample bank as sort of some stuff to try from the beginning, and some of those I've even linked. So if I, bring in the hypersonic sound over here into here, it's already a preset made for that sound. Thanks so much for being here. Hope you got something from today. Big shout out to you all. See you next time.